One of my favorite summertime desserts is a strawberry shortcake. My version consists of repeat layers of light, pillowy angel food cake covered with a sweet strawberry glaze, followed by a creamy, sweet cream cheese custard topping. This tasty layered dessert is easy to make, perfect for this season, and ideal for social gatherings. Strawberry shortcake is a traditional American summertime treat. However, there is an early recording of an English version dating back to 1588 that was made with scones topped with strawberries and butter or sweet cream. In the US, typical strawberry shortcakes consist of angel food cake, Southern American biscuits, or flaky pie crusts, which is my dad's favorite. Usually the topping is simply macerated strawberries and fresh cream. I'm excited to share a more indulgent version of a traditional American strawberry shortcake. This will be the new favorite dessert your friends will request. For the ingredients, you'll need an angel food cake, store-bought or homemade. I'm using my homemade recipe. For the custard layer, you'll need cream cheese, sweetened condensed milk, and whipped topping. And for the strawberry glaze, you'll need granulated sugar, salt, cornstarch, strawberry gelatin like Jell-O, water, fresh strawberries, and almond extract. Let's begin by making the strawberry glaze. So in a large saucepan, we're going to whisk together 200 grams, which is 1 cup of granulated sugar, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 48 grams, which is 1/4 cup plus 3 tablespoons of cornstarch. So the cornstarch in this recipe keeps the Jell-O from being too jiggly. It gives it some structure and allows it to be a little thick like a glaze instead of Jell-O. Then we're going to add 80 grams, which is 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of gelatin. Give that a quick little whisk. And then pour in 2 cups, which is 16 ounces of water. Turn your stove on to medium-high heat. We're going to whisk frequently. Notice right now that our red Jell-O looks a little cloudy from the cornstarch, but as the cornstarch dissolves, it will turn clear and blend in with the normal red color of the Jell-O. Be sure to stay by the stove as you're stirring because you do not want your Jell-O to burn, and it will thicken fairly quickly if on medium-high heat. And this will take a total of about 8 to 10 minutes for it to thicken the way we need it to. Our gelatin is nice and thick. I can feel resistance against the whisk as I'm stirring it. Notice that the cornstarch has blended in with the Jell-O so it doesn't make the Jell-O cloudy anymore. You can tell it has thickened by lifting up your whisk, and notice how the Jell-O just sort of clings to it. You can also tell by scooping up some gelatin with a spoon, let it fall off the spoon, and notice there's a nice thick coating of gelatin around your spoon. It's thick enough, we can take it off the heat. With it off the heat, I'm going to stir in 1/2 teaspoon of almond extract. You do not have to add almond extract, but I love almond extract with strawberries, so that is my preference. But you can leave it out if you don't want it in there. So now we just need to let the gelatin cool. There's a couple ways you can do this. We want to leave it on the counter. Do not put it in the refrigerator because we don't want it to harden up or anything. We want it to stay somewhat runny because we have to stir in our strawberries once it cools, and that'll take about an hour. So in the meantime, you can leave it like this and just stick it on a pot holder and let it cool. Or you could pour it into a different container. And using a cooler container will help it cool a little bit quicker, but you're still likely going to need a full hour. And then just set it aside. Notice how pretty and red it is. It'll look even prettier once we add the strawberries. In a large bowl, we're going to add 8 ounces of cream cheese, which is just 1 package. And using an electric mixer, I'm just going to mix it until it's smooth. This should be room temperature cream cheese. Okay, I'm going to stir in 1 can, which is 14 ounces of sweetened condensed milk. This is the gooey sweetened condensed milk, not evaporated. The difference is evaporated milk is just a condensed form of standard milk, whereas sweetened condensed milk has sugar added. It's a really thick, a much thicker substance. And then go ahead and blend them both together. Notice it's nice and smooth and blended well together. So next we're going to fold in whipped topping. Now I love the So Cocoa Whip, and this comes in 9-ounce containers and we want 12 ounces. So if your whipped topping comes in 8 or 9 ounces, just use 1.5 containers. You don't have to measure it out or anything. You can just eyeball it. Cool Whip is a brand you can use. Just make sure it's thawed. So if you've had it in the freezer, let it thaw in the refrigerator for about 24 hours. And then we're just going to put that into our other cream. Just eyeball the last half. And then we're just going to fold in that whipped topping. We don't want any big stirs here because we don't want to deflate the whipped topping, but just sort of fold it in. Like your figure eight, fold it over, cut through the center and around, cut through the center and fold it over until it's well blended. You know, this is a great pudding slash cream alternative. Just putting these three ingredients together, cream cheese, sweetened condensed milk, and whipped topping, that makes a great cream layer. Be a great base for any kind of a shortcake dessert. It's all mixed in, so we're gonna set it aside until we're ready to make our trifle. In the meantime, you wanna chop up 4 cups, which is 2 pints of whole strawberries. And I like to chop mine up. I've made this recipe with sliced strawberries, but they don't really seep down into between the cracks of everything in the trifle, you know, between the cake layers and such. So I actually like to chop mine up a little finer than just slices, but you can do whatever you want. And I would leave out, you may consider this 2 or 3 whole strawberries, they're the prettiest ones you could find. And we'll use these to place on top because remember the custard layer is going to be the very top. So we want a little bit of color on top of the custard. Okay, if you haven't already, go ahead and slice up your cake. And I prefer to cut my cake into bite-sized pieces because I want the glaze to ooze down in between the cake layers and I want the cake to absorb some of that glaze. And I find that if they're broken up and there's a little bit of space between the pieces, that you're going to get a lot of that oozing. So that's why I like to cut mine into chunks. You could also just slice into 3 horizontal pieces and then just sit them in your trifle dish or however you want to layer. Okay, so I'm gonna set my cake aside for now. And notice the gelatin has cooled. It's nice and thick. And our strawberries are ready to go in. So I'm just going to stir in the strawberries. Isn't that a pretty layer of red? It's assembly time. All right, so just sort of set up an assembly line for yourself. Now you could make these shortcakes in individual serving glasses like I have here, and or just one large container, and I like a glass so that you can see the layers, but you can make this in whatever dish you have. So we're gonna start with a light layer just to cover the bottom of the bowl of cake. We're gonna add about 1/3 of the other ingredients, so about 1/3 of the glaze. So you can just eyeball what that looks like to you. And we want enough glaze just to cover the cake. And again, you want to focus on getting it on that outside so that you can see it through the glass container. Okay, I think the cake's covered up enough there. Okay, so now let's add a layer of custard. So you're going to add about 1/3 of that. Again, we want to cover up the strawberries and we want that custard to be seen from the outside. So we're going to push it against the glass. So far so good, right? Okay, let's add another layer of cake. You can press it down just a little bit if you want, make it nice and tight. Okay, let's add another 1/3 of the glaze. This is why I like to chop up my strawberries because they're a little easier to push to the edge and they mix in well with the glaze itself, the jello. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, let's add another layer of cream. Okay, and let's add our last layer of cake. And the rest of the glaze. Okay, and then we're gonna finish off, top it off here with the remaining custard. So in a large trifle dish, you're going to use 3 layers of each, finishing off with the custard. If you're using small trifle dishes, individual ones, then you'll use likely 2 layers because the trifle dishes just don't hold as many. Okay, and adding the last of the custard. All right, to finish off, we're just going to add a couple of strawberries, just so you know what's on the inside. And there you have it. You could eat it now, but ideally you let it sit in the fridge for it to set up for a couple of hours. But it's up to you. Sometimes if you just can't wait, you can't wait, right? Okay, getting a final look. You can see all the layers. It's a little bit messy with my spoon, wasn't I, with the strawberry? You can see it on the edge there, but you can see all the layers. You've got the cake, the strawberry, the cream, cake, strawberry and cream, cake, strawberry and cream. It's a great dish to take to a social gathering or just to eat on the weekend. It's a pretty dessert and a great way to use up those beautiful strawberries that are in season. You can actually make this dessert any time of year using thawed frozen strawberries in place of the fresh. Store the dessert covered in the fridge for up to a week. This truly is one of my favorite summertime desserts and one I've been making for years. Sometimes I use a basic white cake in this recipe in place of an angel food cake. It's still just as indulgent, but that makes it even more indulgent. If you're looking for a different take on a traditional strawberry shortcake, give this one a try. You'll be pleasantly surprised. Thanks for watching, liking, and subscribing. Until next time, go bake the world.